Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today, another in my mini-series of Fountain Pen Showdowns looking at pocket-sized pen. The first one, the Kaweco Sport, your classic pocket pen. This one's in translucent white. That's going up against this classic Pilot E95s. Steel nib, gold nib. Two very different writing experiences. Two beautiful pens. Two different price points as well. Join me now, down on the table. We'll take a look at the pens. We'll do some size comparisons. We'll do weights and measures. We'll do a writing sample. Then I'll give you my thoughts and my scores for these two pens. Welcome down to the table. Here's today's pens. So we've got the Kaweco Sport. This is the plastic version. Going up against the E95s. These, let's be honest, two very different price points, two very different markets that they're aiming for. But to me, they're both pocket pens. Let's take a look through the bodies. Not going to focus too much on the details. There are detailed reviews of both of these pens on my channel if you want to go into a more detailed view. With the Sport, it's smaller, a lot smaller. I would say, well, we'll do our weights and measures, but it's a good finger width smaller. It's lighter, although only just. Although it's metal, the Pilot is actually very, very light. One of the things which I don't like, I tend to have my pens orientated this way, so the nib's on the left-hand side. The word here, Kaweco Sport, is backwards. I'm looking at it upside down. I'd have liked it if that was the other way around. I'm being very, very, very picky. I've decided to eyedropper the Sport. So you can see there, a little bit of ink. There's not a lot of ink left in here. So what I did is I used silicone grease around the threads and then close that down. That just helps to that just helps to stop any ink from leaking out. I haven't had any ink leaks, and this is now the third time I've eyedroppered this. It does come with a cartridge, and in my other Sport I do refill the cartridge with a blunt nose syringe. There's also a converter. I do have that, but the converter is so small, holds next to no ink, so I find it's more or less useless to use. The cap, I know I jumped ahead there, but the cap twists off. It's half, about 1.5 turns to take the cap off. That reveals the section, which is in the same colour, the same transparent white as the rest of the pen, and this teeny tiny nib. We'll look at the nib in a section. We'll look at the nib in a second. It does look very small, doesn't it? Again, we'll do our sizes in a minute. With the E95s, a very elegant looking pen, looks a lot more elegant than the Sport does. For me, to make this perfect, I would like to see this in a green colour rather than this burgundy. That's just me. I like greens. But this burgundy and this, what they call champagne, very classy look together, isn't it? The cap, very long. Compare that to the cap that we saw there on the Kaweco. Actually, not that much longer when you look at them side by side, though, is it? This cap pulls off. Very smooth action. Pulls off to reveal a very long section, and then an embedded 14-karat gold nib. Again, we'll take a look at the nib in a second. If I unscrew the body, see here what I've got is a cartridge. You can use a Con 40 converter in here. I'm not sure about a Con 70, but definitely a Con 40 will work. Why I don't is this is very deep. So the cartridge or the converter goes in really deep. So if you use a converter, all you can see is the twist mechanism at the top. You can't actually see the ink in it. So you've got no idea of your ink level. At least with this, I can see through the cartridge. So all I do is I fill the cartridge up with ink using a blunt nose syringe. When the ink's run out, I just give it a really good clean with cold water. Clean it all out, then it's ready to go again. Let's pop this down next to each other. We'll take a look at the two nibs. We'll start with the Sport. So this is a steel nib. Not too bad looking, is it? We've got a nice little bit of decoration there around the side. Underneath the breather hole, we've got the Kaweco logo. Below that, we've got 1.1. This is a 1.1 stub nib. You can also tell it's a stub nib by just looking at it, the flat top there on the nib. If we take a look at the E95s, very different looking nib, not as ornate. This is a 14 karat gold nib. So at the top, we've got 14K 525, so that's the gold content. Underneath that, we've got Pilot. Then we've got Medium. We've got the word Japan. And right at the very bottom, we've got some letters and numbers. You can use that actually to work out the factory and also the quarter that the nib was produced in. I like the way the nib sits in here. Downside with this, you can't take the nib out to give it a clean. So if you want to change the nib, you've got to change the whole of this bottom section. Whereas with the Kaweco Sport, that nib just pulls out. Dead simple to pull it out, clean the feed. Let's swap on over and do some size comparisons. I brought in my two standard size comparisons. So here we've got the Pilot Metropolitan and the Lamy Safari. They both are a lot bigger than these pens. But we expect that today's pens, they're both pocket pens. They're not designed to be long. Let's take a look at them unposted and in the way that I would write with these. So here we go. The two standard comparisons, they're both unposted. This is how I write with them. Helps if I get that one the right way around, doesn't it? There we are. We can see the nib now. Whereas the Sport and the E95s, these are both posted. I use both of these pens posted. In the hand, there's the E95s. It's a nice length, very light feeling. Section does feel a little bit cramped. If I take the cap off, this is why I use it posted. You can just about use it, but when it's posted, it's a nice size. It's nice and comfortable to write with. Virtually the same story with the E95s. Beautiful size there when it's posted. Fits really nice in my hand. Section again does feel a bit on the thin side, but not as thin as the Kaweco Sport. If I take that off, unposted, maybe if I'm writing a couple of words, but if I want to write anything longer than a couple of words, I need to post this. But posted, it's perfect weight, perfect balance, just a superb, glorious pen to use. Let's swap on over. We'll fetch in pens that are in roughly the same price range. The two pens I brought in, the Hongdian N8, 41 Aussie dollars. The Kaweco Sport, 41 Aussie dollars. The Pilot E95s, 215 Aussie dollars. The TWSBI Draco, 215 Aussie dollars. So I've tried to get pens that were as close as possible and managed to get actually identical prices this time. Looking at them when there's nothing on, we've got a number 6 nib there on the N8, good size pen, usable unposted. We've got this smaller Kaweco. I want to say it's a number 5 nib, could be 5.5. We've got that gorgeous nib there on the E95s. Then we've got this smaller, I think it's a number 5 size nib on the TWSBI Draco. The Draco, although it's rose gold coloured, it is a steel nib. Let's pop the caps on. With the caps on, I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can see there the N8 and the Draco, a lot bigger again. We expect it. Pocket pens. Let's swap on over and we'll fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. We'll start with the Kaweco Sport. So the full pen, 10.5 centimetres. Unposted, 10.1 centimetres. Posted, 13.3 centimetres. The width of the body, 1.06 centimetres. The width of the cap, 1.34. The section goes from 0.95, just about here, up to 0.98. So although there is a difference, it's hard to tell really. With the E95s, so the body, 11.8 centimetres. We saw that already, there is a difference. Unposted, that difference is reduced and it comes down to 10.5 centimetres. Posted, again it's longer. That comes in at 14.7 centimetres. The width of the body, so I'm measuring that here, that comes in at 1.2 centimetres. And the cap, 1.27 centimetres. The section, going from about here, is 0.95 centimetres up to just near the top, 1.15. So a bigger noticeable difference. You're talking, what, 2 millimetres difference. Let's swap on over and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing. So we'll start with the Kaweco Sport. So the full pen, 10 grams. Remember there's a teeny bit of ink in here. Body, 6 grams. And then the cap. Let's give that a chance to reset. There we go. The cap, 4 grams. With the E95s, the full pen, 15 grams. So a little bit heavier. Again, remember we do have a little bit of ink. The body, if I can stop this from rolling. Let me just gently, there we go. 10 grams for the body, 5 grams for the cap. Both of them very light pens. Let's swap on over and we'll fetch in the notepad of testing. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. Here we've got the notepad of testing. This is Oxford Optic paper. This is 90 GSM paper and it's a black and red notebook. I always like this. This is to me always the best part of any pen review is when they're writing. We're going to start with the Sport. So we've got here a Kaweco Sport with a 1.1 stub nib. Price wise, we're looking, as I said earlier, 41 Aussie dollars. The ink is by PenBBS and it's number 276 Chengdu red. Had this sample for ages. This is the last of the sample. Drying times, so we go immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, even then we're still smudging a little bit, but not enough to do a 2-minute test. Let's look at line variation. So it's a 1.1 stub nib. We expect to see some, but here's no pressure. Here I'm adding a bit of pressure. Not really seeing much wider line, just makes it feel stiffer and scratchier. Where we do see a difference though is in the line across, where it's a lot thinner, but that's the nature of the stub nib. So no pressure with, none with, none and with. Let's move the mic and do the writing sample. I love the natural line variation you get with stub nibs. Flow test. And then going backwards. Very nice. Now this pen, as I say, is virtually out of ink. You can see just a teeny tiny bit in there. Might get another day out of it, but this will soon be getting cleaned out. When I clean it out, I give it a really good deep clean. Sometimes I'll put the body through if there's any staining. I'll put that through my ultrasonic. But generally just cleaning with cold water is enough to give it a good clean out. So that's the Kaweco Sport. Let's move that page up ever so slightly. We'll now do our writing with the Pilot E95s. So let's go Pilot E95s. This has got a medium 14 karat gold nib. Price wise, you're looking at 215 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Diamine and it's Seize the Night. Quite a dark looking ink this. Drying times, so we go immediate. So here you can see the purple shades coming through. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Still smudging there. 1 minute. After a minute, that one's nice and dry. Line variation, so no pressure. With some pressure. The nib does feel a little bit softer. Just be very careful using pressure. It's so easy to damage the nib. So no pressure with, none, and with. Slight difference, but not enough to really make it worth pressing on it. We'll move the mic and write the sentence. I do find there's more audible feedback on this than what we get from the Sport. Tactile wise, I don't get a lot of feedback coming up through my fingers. It doesn't feel glassy, it doesn't feel smooth, but equally it doesn't feel rough. It just feels pleasant. It's very, very hard to describe it. So here goes our flow tests. And backwards. Yeah, very nice, very consistent. So what are my thoughts and my scores for these pens? Let's start with pen looks. The Kaweco Sport, look, it's plain. There's no two ways about it. I do like the fact it's slightly translucent, or this particular model is. My other Sport is a green, not translucent at all. Being translucent, that's why I'm happy to eyedropper this version. But it is very plain, very utilitarian, does what it says on the box. It's a pocket pen that writes. The E95s looks ever so classy. Very, very nice. It's a pen you could happily sit there in a business meeting, whip it out, and people will look thinking, wow, what a classy looking pen. He obviously knows what he's doing with it. The only difference to make this a perfect pen for me, as I've already said, I'd have loved if this material was like an emerald green. Or maybe a dark forest green. It's burgundy, it's nice, it's just not me. My preference is green, that's my favourite colour. So for pen looks, I'm going to give the Sport an 8 out of 10 and the E95s a 9 out of 10. Build quality, they are both very good, solid pens. The Kaweco Sport, dead simple to clean. You know, it's plastic, you can chuck it in that ultrasonic, you can do virtually anything with it. We've got a nib and feed that's dead easy to pull out. So I've got no problems using a shimmer ink in this pen. I can, after I've used it, like I do with any pens that I use a shimmer ink in, pull out the nib and feed, give them both a good clean. I generally give the feed a pass through my ultrasonic just to really give it a real good deep clean. The E95s, again, very good quality. Feel the quality. Feels different than what we get with the Sport in terms of quality. 4 times the price though, isn't it? Very nice. I don't use shimmer inks in here. Today I've got Sheening ink, but I quite often steer away from some Sheening inks. You can't take out the nib and feed. So it's a pain in the butt if you want to give it a good deep clean. But other than that, everything is nice. Good build quality. What I'm going to do is give them both a good solid 8 out of 10 in terms of build quality. Writing experience. With the Sport, I love the natural line variation that we get here with the stub nib. You know, it's the same with all stub nibs, but I just love it. It brings character to the writing, which I think makes a big difference. I love the feedback. Yes, it's not overly tactile, but there's a little bit of, you know you're writing, you've got audible feedback, you've got a little bit coming through the pen. Not enough for me to call it tactile, but enough to say that, yes, I can feel this writing. The nib is nice and soft, it's gentle on the page. I'm going to give writing experience, both of these, a 9 out of 10. Ink flow, both of them flow really well. Just going to fetch up the Seize the Night here. So this is, I say it's primarily a purple ink, but hopefully you can see it coming through. It's got a glorious gold sheen to it. It's very nice ink. Writes and performs really well in this pen. Writing experience, ink flow, no issues. 8 out of 10 for both of them. Comfort, does feel a bit thin on the sport. Posts nicely. Section though does feel a little bit on the thin side, but I'm looking for it. That's part of the idea of doing these reviews. I'm looking for little nitpicky stuff that normally wouldn't bother me. And to be honest, when I'm normally using this, it doesn't bother me. It's still comfortable enough. Whoops. Missed the pen completely there with the cap. With the E95s, again, feels a little bit thin when posted. Feels very, very short unposted, but as soon as you post it, wow, isn't that nice? Very comfortable to use, very well balanced in the hand. Going to give both of these an 8 out of 10. Value for money. You get 4 of these for the price of 1 of these. Got to bear that in mind. But when I do value for money, I try to do it value for money for the market that it's aimed at, for the price range it's aimed at. These two are aimed at very different markets. Yes, they're both pocket pens, so they're both aimed for that pocket pen market. But when you look at the prices, you're looking at the higher end market here with the E95s. They're both very good. The Kaweco Sport, I quite happily, and I do recommend that as a good quality starter pen for people. There's a lot of choice in colours, a lot of choice in nibs. You can use either cartridges, you can use a converter, or as I've done, you can eyedropper it. Loads of choice. It's quite a good starter pen. The E95s, this is my cheapest non-Chinese gold nibbed pen. It writes beautifully. It's a really good performer. It's a really good looker. Again, for the market that it's aimed at, I think $215, pretty good value. Value for money, going to give both of these an 8 out of 10. So that means that the total score for the Kaweco Sport with PenBBS number 276 Chengdu Red is 8.17 out of 10. And for the Pilot E95s with Diamine Seize the Night is 8.33 out of 10. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Have you got these pens? Have you got either of them? Have you got both of them? Have you tried doing a showdown between them to see how they compare? I'd love to get your ideas and your thoughts as well. Please drop any comments down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.